Thank you for joining me on The Ordinary Effect, the place where we sometimes talk about the things that people think about, but then don't want to talk about or don't talk about. I'm your host, Guido Prino. Thank you for joining me. I hope you subscribed. If you haven't yet, please consider doing so you get notified when the new episodes come out. Today, when the power isn't reliable, what recent outages reveal about modern life. Yes, power. Look, there are certain things in modern life that we don't think about until they stop working. Running water, internet connectivity, heat in the winter, and electricity. Maybe most of all, because electricity is the quiet foundation underneath everything else. It doesn't announce itself, it doesn't demand attention, it just exists, steady and invisible, making the rest of life possible. Until it doesn't. Over the past couple of weeks, many people across Southern Ontario have experienced something that didn't look dramatic from the outside, but felt deeply unsettling inside their homes. Repeated, unpredictable power interruptions. Not massive storm outages, not a single blackout you adapt to and move past. Something stranger. Brief drops, flickers, 10-second outages that reset clocks and reboot routers, sometimes followed days later by longer outages that forced people to stop what they were doing and confront how dependent daily life really is on stable electricity. I experienced it myself, not as a commentator, not as someone reading reports, but sitting at home, watching lights blink off and back on, waiting for the modem to reconnect, wondering whether it would happen again before the night was over. At first, you dismiss it, maybe a fluke. Then it happens again and again. And suddenly, you're not just reacting, you're anticipating. Saving files more often, hesitating before starting something important, wondering whether to shut equipment down proactively because the next interruption might not be so brief. That shift from inconvenience to uncertainty is what makes these kinds of outages so disruptive. A long outage has structure. You adapt. You light candles, pull out flashlights, adjust expectations. But repeated short outages leave you suspended between normal life and contingency mode. You don't know whether the system has stabilized or whether you're in the middle of something that could escalate. And in many communities served by Electra utilities, that's exactly what happened. A progression from flickers to instability to eventually longer outages and then back to flickers and instability. To understand why, you have to step back and look at how the electrical grid protects itself. These are some of the answers offered by Electra as well. Power systems are designed around safety first. When something abnormal happens, contact with vegetation, equipment contamination, a loose connection arcing under load, protective devices automatically shut power off to prevent damage or fire. After a brief pause, they restore power to see whether the problem has cleared. If it did, service continues. If not, the cycle repeats. That's why outages lasting seconds aren't random glitches. They're the grid testing whether conditions are safe. During winter, particularly in regions where heavy road salt is used, environmental factors can make faults more likely. Salt doesn't stay neatly on the pavement. Traffic lifts it into the air, wind spreads it, and it settles on exposed infrastructure. When humidity rises or temperatures fluctuate, that residue can become conductive, allowing electricity to arc across surfaces meant to insulate it. It sounds technical, but the result is simple. Tiny faults that trigger shutdowns. If those faults persist long enough, equipment can degrade, insulators can be damaged, connectors can overheat, transformers can experience stress. At that point, automatic restoration isn't safe anymore, and outages become longer while crews repair or isolate the problem. So, the progression from blips to blackouts isn't random. It's a system moving from early warning signs to failure modes that require human intervention. For households, the consequence extends beyond inconvenience. Most people think the danger is losing power. In reality, the greater risk is what happens when power returns. Electrical systems restart under stable conditions. Motors draw high current as they spin up. Power supplies attempt to regulate fluctuating voltage. Sensitive electronics face spikes and dips outside their normal operating range. The damage isn't always immediate. It accumulates. A router that fails weeks later, an appliance control board that starts glitching, a computer power supply that suddenly stops working months after the outages have faded from memory. Modern homes are filled with devices designed for steady input, not repeated shock. Smart thermostats, security systems, network equipment, appliances with digital controls. Each interruption forces a reboot cycle that adds wear. Beyond the technical impact, there's a human one. Lost work, interrupted online learning, security systems that go temporarily offline, heating systems resetting during cold weather, food safety concerns if outages stretch longer, and perhaps, most significantly, the erosion of confidence. Because when electricity becomes unpredictable, everything built on top of it feels less stable as well. Faced with that reality, people begin asking what they can do to protect themselves. The first layer of protection is relatively simple. Surge protectors, battery backups for critical devices. My battery backup gave me at least 4 to 6 hours on several important devices. Also consider measures that smooth voltage fluctuations and keep essential equipment running through brief interruptions. But as outages become more frequent or severe, households start considering something more substantial. Backup power that can replace the grid temporarily. Whole home standby generators, such as those produced by Generac, as an example, represent that next step. These aren't portable units you roll out during emergencies. They're permanently installed systems integrated into the home's electrical infrastructure. Here's how they work in practical terms. Under normal conditions, your home receives power from the grid. The generator sits idle, continuously monitoring incoming voltage. The moment it detects loss of utility power, an automatic transfer switch disconnects the home from the grid. Now, this is a crucial safety step that prevents electricity from flowing back into the lines where crews may be working. Then, the generator starts automatically, usually within seconds. Once it reaches stable operating speed and output, the transfer switch reconnects your home's circuits to the generator instead of the grid. Lights come back on. Heating and cooling resume. Refrigerators restart. For the homeowner, it feels like power was restored, but now it's coming from a machine outside rather than the wider network. When utility power stabilizes again, the transfer switch reverses the process, reconnecting the home to the grid and shutting the generator down. These systems provide autonomy, but they also highlight a deeper issue. Infrastructure reliability ideally shouldn't depend on private backup solutions. Not every household can afford them. Not every property can accommodate them. Backup power is a safeguard, not a substitute for a resilient grid. Which brings us to the question of accountability. Utilities face complex challenges: environmental conditions, aging equipment, growing demand. No system is immune to failure, but communication is not constrained by those factors. It's a choice. When widespread instability occurs, residents need timely, clear information. Is this temporary? Is it systemic? Should we expect more outages? What mitigation measures are underway? Many people felt they were reacting rather than preparing, assembling explanations from scattered sources instead of receiving direct guidance. Transparency doesn't eliminate outages, but it reduces uncertainty. Because electricity isn't optional, it's the platform modern life runs on. When that platform wobbles, even briefly, people need more than restoration. They need reassurance that the system is being actively managed, not just repaired after the fact. The outages may stop. The grid will stabilize. But the experience leaves a lasting realization. Reliability isn't automatic. It's maintained through constant effort, investment, and communication. Infrastructure isn't just physical. It's relational. It depends on trust between providers and the communities they serve. And when the lights flicker across the entire regions, restoring power is only just part of the job. Restoring confidence is the rest. You've been listening to The Ordinary Effect. If this episode resonated, share it with someone who's been watching their clocks reset lately. Stay prepared, stay informed, and we'll see you the next time. Please remember to subscribe. Thank you for joining me.